Hello, today we are going to talk about speed and velocity. In the last lecture we talked about rest and motion. After that we talked about displacement and distance. In that lecture in which we talked about rest and motion, we talked that the rest and the motion are never absolute. We always measure them in reference with something, with reference to something. That particular reference we called as frame of reference. After that we talked about distance and displacement. Distance, whenever an object tries to move from one position to another position, we always call it as initial position and the final position of motion. Then from initial position to final position, whichever path it has taken, the total path length of that particular path we call it as distance. And in the second case we talked about displacement. What is meant by displacement? Displacement is the shortest possible distance from initial position to final position, irrespective of path followed. We talked about them in the last lecture. Today we are going to talk about speed and velocity. Till now we have taken speed and velocity as alternate things. Sometimes we use speed, sometimes we use velocity. But as per the physics, these two are completely two different things. What is meant by speed? So first of all, what this parameter tell you, that is very important. First, whenever you talk about speed, whenever you talk about velocity, what does it mean? That whenever your object is moving, that means whether it is making the displacement, whether you are measuring the distance, basically whenever your object is moving, the obvious question comes, and that question is how fast? How fast the particular object is moving. The fastness, I don't know whether it is an English word or not, but the rapidity of that particular object is measured in speed and velocity. So we'll talk about then speed and velocity. So what is meant by speed and what is meant by velocity? So till school level you have studied that speed is equal to distance upon time. Second, you have studied velocity is equal to displacement upon time. Now we'll talk about it in detail. So what is there? What is meant by distance upon time? What is meant by displacement upon time? So let's take a rough look at a particular example. So consider the example in which there is a A position, there is a B position. For the ease of calculations, we'll consider this is going to follow this path. When a particular object starting from A position going at the B position following this path. Why? In this case, distance and displacement going to be the same thing, because we are going to talk about some other parameters over here. Now, what will happen if this total distance is suppose 10 kilometers and a particular object require 5 hours, so slow, 5 hours from A to B, that means to cover 10 kilometers. Then speed is equal to distance upon time. So how much distance it has covered? 10 kilometers. What is the total time required? 5 hours. So what is its speed? 2 kilometers per hour. Velocity, same. This is a straight line motion. So straight line motion, distance and displacement are same. So 10 divided by 5 is equal to 2 kilometers per hour, directed from A to B, because displacement is a vector quantity. Now look at these two equations, look at these two answers. I'll ask you some another question. Suppose you are watching cricket on TV. There is your favorite player playing and he has scored 50 runs from the 5 overs. 50 runs from 5 overs. So you will say he has scored 50 runs from 5 overs. That means he is playing with run rate of 10 runs. What is meant by this run rate? Run rate is nothing but you are saying that particular player is making 10 runs per over. This is basically the total runs divided by total overs. This is what you are calculating, the run rate. What is the run rate? Run rate is average run scored per over. Which does not mean in each over that particular cricketer has scored 10 runs. He may have scored 15 runs. He may have scored in 1 over he may have scored 15 runs. In 1 over he may have scored 10 runs. In 1 over he may have scored 20 runs. And so on. So you cannot say that each and every over he has scored 10 runs. What is this 10 run? 10 run is a run rate basically. Run rate means runs per over. Similarly, in this, whenever you are calculating speed, you say distance upon time. That means 10 upon 5, 2 km per hour. That means you are saying this guy who is traveling from A to B is traveling with 2 km per hour. That means you are saying that after 2 hours, if I want to check where that person is, you will say that person is 2 km from A. After 1 hour. After second hour means after 2 hours, where it will be? So it will be 4 kilometers from A. Is it necessary? No, it is not. So these two formulas, speed is equal to distance upon time or velocity is equal to displacement upon time, basically these are formulas for average velocity and average speed. In these two formulas we are going to talk about actually average velocity and average speed. These two formulas are average velocity and average speed. It does not mean for the whole distance it is traveling or for whole displacement it is traveling with same speed or same velocity. For different time intervals during the motion, it may have different velocities, it may have different speeds. In here we are talking about total distance covered divided by total time required, average speed. Total displacement divided by total time, average velocity. So now we come to know whatever we have studied till 10th, we talked about average speed and average velocity. In addition to these two, we are going to study today that instantaneous speed and other is instantaneous velocity. So in the next lecture, we are going to talk about immediately instantaneous speed and instantaneous velocity. If you are watching this lecture, immediately look at the next lecture, because if these two concepts, if you study simultaneously, you come to know the exact difference between these two. So we'll talk about instantaneous speed and instantaneous velocity exactly in the next lecture. Thank you.